Perfect, so I guess we'll call this meeting of the rec board to order. We'll start with public comment. Any public comment today? All right, seeing no public comment, moving along. So we have the approval of the 2024 meeting minutes. I believe it was in everyone's packets. Does anyone have any questions or amendments to the meeting minutes? No questions there, so I'll entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Wonderful. Meeting minutes are passed, so now we're on to the finance statement. Anything you want to draw our attention to now that all the summer programming is wrapped up?
Not necessarily. We're going through the budgeting process with Liz. I turned in the first pass, or not with Liz, her name is written from me. With Phyllis. Late last week, her and I went over a couple more things. As everybody knows, there's 3 lines that I share, or the rec department shares with Public Works. And with the hiccup that we had with playground materials and supplies, Greg and I have been meeting almost every other day going over the budget process. So there's pool materials and supplies, playground materials and supply, and the last one is one that I don't use at all, Stonehouse materials and supplies. So next steps is Phyllis will have a meeting with finance department based on those budgets and forecasts. So, but everybody saw it. Any questions on the budget?
The budget as in
I mean, on the
proposed
actuals
fees?
for last month.
On this, no.
Good.
Wonderful. So is there a motion to approve the finance statement?
I'll motion that. I
Motion.
approve it.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so that is passed. And then moving on with the agenda, flying through today.
Love it.
Let's see here. Committee reports. Anything out of the pool committee?
Just a few things. We received the survey. I was happy with it. You know, basically the thing was things that stood out was pool hours and the snack bar. We're gonna have a committee meeting to figure that out. Chris and I guess Steve are gonna start to close the pool. Last week we had a lost and found open house. I manned it for 2 hours, Chris manned it for 2 hours. We had people come, get their floaties and their chairs, and it was good, so.
Did somebody pick up the nice Tommy Bahama one?
No, they did not. That's
Wow.
yours, Randy.
Wow.
So,
That was like a $60 chair.
but it's amazing when people leave like expensive chairs, but, and that's basically it. We're hoping to have a committee meeting within the next few weeks, so we can get items on the budget by December, and, that's it. And Sally has something to
Sure. So I just completed my water safety instruction.
Yay.
Thank you. So I am certified WSI through the
And
American Red Cross.
That's a Red Cross
Yep,
program.
the American Red Cross. And this was a program that we talked about, that Randy and I talked about having some of the guards do to kind of help the training and improve the quality of the swim lessons for next summer. So I kind of just wanted to do it for myself, but it was nice timing because like now that I've gone through it, I have really, you know, firsthand knowledge of what the program is like and like how we might be able to apply it to our pool. So we went through, it's like a third-party training group that's local-ish to here, called My Training Group. That's kind of how the
What's it called,
does
Sally?
this.
I'm sorry.
Pardon me?
What's it called?
My Training Group is the name of the group. And that just kind of like quick side note, this seems to be how the American Red Cross is moving forward with their trainings. Like I just, in addition, this is like the season of recertification for me. I just also got recertified in first aid and CPR, and it was the same thing. Like they were not teaching the class directly, they're contracting with these like private companies that then provide the service, so for better or for worse. But anyway, it was a great program. It was harder than I expected. It was much more intense than I expected. So, the good news, so that was kind of like, because I was thinking to myself, I don't think that we can ask, like, simply ask, like, say, 10 different lifeguards to go, I just don't think it's reasonable.
If I can just
Yeah, sure.
from what I learned from Nancy at the Hills pool is that once you have that WSI, that is what is required to then instruct the guards on how to
Yes.
give lessons. So you could then be the one to pass that information along, so they wouldn't have to take that, right? Is
Yes,
that
exactly.
correct?
And that was something
Okay.
that I learned as well,
Yeah.
like in my class,
Yeah,
that
me
like those folks who have the WSI, so yeah, and so Randy and I talked about like possibly having the pool manager, the assistant managers, there's
Mhm.
one lifeguard that's very eager to learn, and then they, and perhaps I could assist a little bit, could teach the guards. Now, those guards will not be WSI certified, because they're not openers, but they can
Under your
give
purview.
They can learn from.
Yeah.
Now, was there something along those lines where there was a number of years that you had to have it before you could start teaching? I remember something about that from last month.
Previous meeting.
Yeah, so if you want to be, this is like the next level up, if you want to be a WSIT, like if you want to be a teacher who can certify other people to be WSI, that's a whole other training process.
then-
And that you have to work for a while
What's
as
the
a
difference
WSI.
between that and what you just mentioned where you can oversee these
Right.
other folks?
More
Okay.
training.
Right, so like as a WSI, like for me right now, I can train the lifeguards to run swim classes. They will not be WSI certified. I'm the only WSI, but I can, like under the American Red Cross, can like teach them how to run specific lessons.
Understood.
So they could give a lesson, but they couldn't teach someone else how to give a lesson.
Gotcha.
And
If
they
you
also-
taught the lessons, would that be more official of swim lessons than you overseeing the guard? So like when the pool manager, whoever else you met, if they get the certification and they're the one teaching the lessons, are those considered more robust swim lessons than if you're just overseeing a group of guards who are giving lessons?
Right. I think it will just depend on how well he trains them. I mean, the benefit I could see actually in having like say Chris, our manager, train the guards is he can kind of teach them to like to be really dialed in on specific levels. Like I have as a WSI, I have a very broad overview of everything from like how to teach a 6-month-old to how to coach like a college athlete.
There's 7 or 9
Yeah.
different qualifications under that certification.
So it's like a very broad overview. So like when I actually start teaching, I'm actually gonna have to like go back to the manual and like really like continue learning so that I'm prepared for like very specific levels.
But Rick, I think to answer your question, it's nice to be able to basically brag or have in the rec guide that we have Red Cross WSI certified
Yeah.
swim lesson instructors.
Exactly.
And then we
that's-
can give a better description of what the curriculum is. If you look at what we've had in the past, it's very vague, it's open for interpretation, but by having these people that are WSI certified and be able to,
Are they
Salad is-
certified or they're trained?
Are
well,
you,
if they go to the class, they're certified. So our goal would be to send at least 4 people to the class.
and then
and
they would be the
certified.
ones teaching the
And they
lesson.
would be the
Or
primary
post-docs.
teachers.
Of WSI.
So at
That-
each swim lesson, like maybe you have like, so set, like I'm envisioning, Aiden took the class, the swim lessons last year, and it was like, there were 4 lifeguards there. So there'd be one, like Sally would be there with 3 lifeguards, is that what you're
I don't know
envisioning?
the intricacy of it, but the idea would have at least 4 people that are certified that could be the primary instructors. Under that would be other lifeguards that if Johnny's on vacation and somebody has to fill in for his class, that those people have been taught by Sally, Chris, or the other 2 assistants. Does that make sense? So that person that giving that one class may not be certified, like Sally, Chris, or the guard, or the assistants. They might fill in, but primarily we'd have 4 people that are WSI certified.
Right, you
teaching.
just be careful how you put it in the rec guide,
Yeah,
though,
I
you
know.
don't intend
I
that
know.
they're all always teaching the class, because as a parent, if I found out that I signed up for like swim lessons and it was
But
I thought I was
that's like
signing up
having
for
a
a certified
substitute, that's like
instructor.
having a substitute teacher, so that doesn't really count.
But what if I sign up for a 6, how long are the classes? Is it
2 weeks.
6 weeks?
How many instructors
No,
teach
I
at one
thought it
time?
was one.
I thought it was 6.
Is it just one?
You
Or
could
it's
have
one
up to
week,
4
every
different
day, 1
levels
week,
going on at one time.
Yeah, okay. But what
I think if one of them was in the pool
Yeah,
that
I
was
think it's fine.
certified
Yes,
and
that's
could
what I said, that's
sort of,
what I-
if the other 3 aren't, that's
Yes,
fine,
I
if
think
there's
that's
one
fine.
in the pool that's certified, or one
Yes.
on the property that's certified,
On
like
the
I'm thinking of it
property.
like ServSafe certified with restaurant, be like, there has to be somebody on the property who's certified.
Yeah.
So,
And I think
even
we
if they're
should
not in the
do that.
water, if
Yeah.
they're there and they're certified,
Yeah, and
so
like
the
I said,
manager,
we'll
whatever,
work
you
out the
depend on the
logistics
water.
of
Yeah,
how
they
it's
can-
worded, how we'll run the
Yeah.
actual classes, what the descriptions are on Wyomissing Rec, and make sure that it's very clear. I mean, that was one of the negatives in the membership survey, was to have a more robust swim lesson classes.
Yeah.
So that's our goal. So
Yeah.
we're working toward that. I don't have all the answers of who shot Johnny yet, but by the time we get to pool season, we'll have a very robust swim lesson.
No, I think
Yeah, I
that's
mean,
great.
you simply have to say, what, WIC, whatever it is, the 4 letters, certified staff members on, we have 4 certified staff
Yeah.
members.
Yeah, and you can even like say.
Employed by the pool.
Yeah, and they'll be
And that's all you have to
guards.
say.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's great.
But like Sally said, there's one, Noah, I think is his name,
Yeah.
or Jonah. One of them, tall, goofy looking guy, but he did very well giving swim classes without having the certification. He loved it, he was engaged, parents loved him, kids loved him, and he wants to take the class to get certified. So as a kid, I want to stick around for the next 2 years. I'm gonna encourage
Yeah,
him to take it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and it's half the price of the original one we looked at.
Oh, yeah.
Correct.
That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, and the lovely thing too about the American Red Cross swim lessons is they're incredibly
Do you want me to
concrete.
talk
Like,
about it?
it's like, this is what you have to do for level 1. It's very, very easy to visualize, and you have to do these things before you can move up to level 2.
Yes, yeah, that's what
So-
Nancy was saying, there's like a very clear chart, and
It's
you
very
have to
clear.
like, she checks the boxes, and then once all the boxes have been checked, then you come up to like step number 2,
Yes.
so it's like very, very cut and dry.
There's
Very good.
outcomes for each level.
Yes,
Yes.
And they're
exactly.
measurable outcomes.
Yes.
Well,
And they're being tracked.
We
And
appreciate
this
you
is
taking
All
this
of the
step.
things that were not there
Yeah, that's
last year.
fantastic.
And this
That's
is,
good.
I think this is just really gonna improve what we can
Yeah.
offer, so thank you for
Yeah,
volunteering to
Yeah.
step into
Great,
that to
Sally.
begin with.
yeah.
One of the other ideas I'd like to send over to the pool committee for you guys' next meeting, again, just a way to try to see how else we can drum up maybe day memberships or additional buzz around the pool. Maybe trying to partner with either sports teams or organizations and maybe offer like a day at the pool.
Yeah.
Where maybe do like, for instance, say the library day at the pool. So pick like a Tuesday, and overall, anyone who buys a day pass that day, maybe a portion of it we donate back to the organization who's sponsoring,
Yeah.
so that we
I like
kind of get across the board, you're kind of bolstering not only the pool, the borough, but also the other organization.
Like that. Or if you do like a volleyball tournament,
Yeah.
like we have that, like I've never seen people playing volleyball. It's like a great space for volleyball.
Yeah, I mean, again, another great idea to look at,
Yeah.
so again, if you wanna have other tournaments or anything else you can do, but I think that'd be something, again, kind of some of my questions, Randy, about what days are the least busy, if we can kind of line that up. Again, I think doing it on our busy days of the week are probably the poor choice for our regular pool members, but if we can offer that, on a weekday, hey, this is.
Like on Monday or Tuesday or
Yeah.
something.
Exactly, and see
Or
if we
like
get
later
any.
in the summer when it starts to kind of dwindle
Yeah.
off.
And then with that, also making sure, again, if we're gonna start trying to lean into these sorts of things, making sure we have a robust procedure in place at the front desk. If the pool is for residents and we're gonna charge residents and guests, have something in place. How are we gonna verify that residents? Do we have good payment methods? Is everybody paying with cash or taking cards? What can we do? All those sorts of things as well.
We'll figure it out.
So I'd love to see if we can find something like that, just a little bit more engagement that we can offer and then approach other areas. And then again, once we start doing it, hopefully people are gonna wanna come and say, hey, we want a day at the YO pool as well.
Yeah,
All
it's a
those
great
sorts of things.
space, I think people just don't realize while they're in there.
Absolutely, and then it's, it's something we're already doing, we're already staffing it.
Yeah.
It seems like there's room most days of the week to have more people in the pool overall, so it seems like let's just start using a little bit more of the capacity that we have.
Did you see my bullet point that there is no max capacity for the pool?
I did, that's a good one
Is
as well.
that being determined?
The
Really?
fire code, there's not a mandated max capacity, like at a restaurant or a building, there's max capacities,
Yeah.
the pool doesn't have one.
Yeah.
Chief Holmes said he would help me calculate it based on these, statements by the fire department, but we had to measure square footage and we had to do a lot of
Or-
yardstick work.
Or I guess it would be determined by staffing, like how many people you can have in the pool based upon how many guards you have on staff.
Well, I mean, like I couldn't print the whole email, but it says,
Yeah.
the International Building Code specifies the space required needed for as person as 58 square feet per person in the shallow end and 15 square feet per person in the deep end. There's a lot of,
Yeah.
he pulled up the international code and I forgot what the name of the other code was. He showed me 3 different codes, but there is no published max.
And again, I
capacity.
don't need us running down something, if it's never been an issue before, I don't need us like
They
posting
capped it-
something,
They
but
capped it at 4th of July last
yeah, I mean, I feel like
Tuesday.
there should be some
At some
maximum, just to make sure we're not overreaching on our guard staff or on,
Yeah.
how many people we can have.
Fourth
in
of
the
July is
People
only
in the
the ever
pool,
day
I
that
feel
I've
like
ever
that's
seen it.
the-
Yeah, I can't even go there anymore. Yeah,
Yeah.
4th of July, too.
Thank you very much, Pool.
Yes.
On to Spooky Hollow. So any updates at this point for us?
Sure. So Randy's been hard at work. I just saw in my Gmail that he sent out a bunch of follow-up emails about Spooky Hollow to different groups. Hard at work at getting all these like big areas settled, like such as concessions and carnival games and activities and so on. We had a committee meeting with Jess, Kareem, Randy, and myself. That was, I don't know what the date was for that. Between
A
last
couple weeks ago. Yeah.
Couple weeks ago.
Anyway, we had a committee meeting, so we kind of went over those different areas and kind of starting to kind of get a little bit more into the fine, making decisions on the fine details. And it's coming along. I think, our big question mark too is how, in my mind, is how we're going to make sure we have enough volunteers. Because we know we've had struggled with that in the past, and Spooky Hollow is really dependent on volunteers. But we have a number of groups that both through the high school and Randy's contacted local businesses. A number of groups have committed to coming in. So I think at this point we're just kind of, at least in my mind, one of the big things is just kind of figuring out what is the volunteer need and how close are we to filling that. And I don't know if you want to add anything, Randy, on that front. I know it's really
ROG Orthodontics, they have agreed to come on board and partner with us. They want to do a photo booth with all the stuff that you take pictures with. Fleet Feet, Bell Tower said no. I forgot who else. Somebody else said no. Some other company. I can't
Just
remember.
try the works. They're very kid oriented.
It really, most of, Bell Tower said it was staffing for them, and that's what most of it is. It's a Saturday, and when it comes to something like that, Saturday's a big day for them. I didn't reach out to them specifically.
Yeah, I didn't know if they'd be a sponsor,
Right now we have,
just because they're child focused.
we have 11 participants in the carnival area, the games. Concessions are pretty much nailed down now. Except for candied apples, if anybody knows anybody who wants to do candied apples and run that for us.
Like making caramel apples or.
If we
There's a
wanted-
good stand at the Wyomissing Farmers Market that sells.
If you know somebody, reach out to them and see if they can do it.
I can reach out to the person at the Wyomissing Farmers Market. She makes good caramel apples.
And we also talked about getting in touch with Minithon. We haven't yet.
No, I haven't.
Yeah.
But that could be, I didn't really think of that specifically, but anyway, so that's kind of where we're trying to bring back everything that we had, that we wanted to do last year. So there were certain things last year that, because of the weather, we couldn't do, such as the bounce house, but we're trying to get everything that we wanted to do so that, so basically just kind of tweak it, we're extending the hours, we're making it earlier, trying to get everything.
Any lighting on the horizon for us for cleanup?
What's that?
Any lighting on the horizon for cleanup?
Oh, okay.
We're
Yeah.
ending an hour earlier.
Yeah.
having your cleanup committee? Do you have a committee chair
For cleanup?
We do not. Good point.
Rick's gonna stick around and help.
Exactly. All the tables will get loaded.
We did talk about ending the carnival 15 minutes early.
We did, we talked about that and like
Like
really.
having the kids that are, like, so like if I'm running the booth or
Yes.
whatever, like, you're on the shift, and guess what, the last 15 minutes of your shift is you pack up the table and you carry it back.
Mhm.
And we also talked about maybe asking maintenance
Yeah, we have all that.
to put the tables right in the,
I already took care of that.
perfect.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
that takes away the setup and the cleanup of like
Well, it
moving all
sounds
the
like,
tables.
sounds like you guys took some of the takeaways from last year and
Yeah.
really
Oh,
taking a
yeah.
big step up on them, so we
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Yeah, and I do love that. I mean, I know there's some disagreement in our committee whether, like, how responsible all our volunteers will be, but I do love, at least in theory, that, like, you know, like, say, for example, whatever group comes to do the face painting, when they're done, before they leave, they clean up their station.
Yeah.
Like, that'll make things so much easier
That's
for
it.
everyone. Yeah. So,
Can I just ask for concessions? Have you talked to Greenhouse Kitchen?
Yeah.
They did the Earth Day one.
Yeah, they
They
did
did
the
Earth
Earth Day one. He wants to be involved. He'd love to be involved. They make amazing soups. I think if they're able to sell products or whatever.
Right now, we
it's
have
all-
Kona Ice and Island Noodles. I wanted to use Island Noodles specifically because we've never done anything with them.
Yeah.
And part of the agreement with him coming was that we won't invite another savory truck. Not that he's holding a gun to my head, but I totally get why he wants to do that. He wants to be able to sell more food. And I said, okay, I'll tell you what, I'll do it this year, but next year if I.
Is
make
Island
it-
Noodles Wyomissing or are they West Riding?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Just Greenhouse Kitchen is a Wyomissing
Yeah.
business, so we wanna try and look at that too.
oh, yeah, so you're talking about the place on Athens, yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
I did
Yeah.
I partnered with them for Earth Day.
You did?
Yeah,
Okay.
so they were there at Earth Day.
Okay.
Yeah,
They
and I
didn't,
spoke
they didn't
with
have a
them
great
Earth
turnout
Day.
at Earth Day.
They didn't have a great setup.
Their
at Earth
menu
Day,
wasn't
'cause
great.
They weren't, they're not
Right.
like, they hadn't yet, like, they
They
just
hadn't
moved into their
officially
new
opened
space
yet.
and they were
Yeah.
kinda like,
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not a
this year
food
they'll be
truck.
more.
They would set up as
No,
a
they're not a
kitchen.
food truck.
So,
No.
they do have limitations to what they can do.
I wonder, they could be good at maybe lighting in the greens
Yeah.
then too, cause
Mhm.
it's too
Lots of
cold and.
options.
Yeah, I think that's,
Yeah.
I think that's a great way to
If
get
we
them
can have
involved.
common-
and then I'll definitely invite them back to Earth Day, cause it's plant-based food, it makes sense with Earth Day.
Yeah.
It fits in totally.
Awesome. Anything else on the Spooky Hollow Committee? Thanks for the call out, Jennifer. That will make sure we get them involved with something yet this year. Anything else for Spooky Hollow?
I don't think so. Are there any questions or?
I'll be there.
Great, yes.
Wonderful.
Yes, fantastic. Thank you.
So that's on to me for lighting the greens. So actually, I guess just today we started kicking around a few planning emails. So we had Pamela from the Wahoos volunteered to be on the lighting of the greens committee. So her, Randy, and I are going to set up something in the near future. It's a TBD at the moment. So if anyone else wants to get involved with the lighting of the greens committee, make sure to let me know, and we'll get you on the email chain.
I think I would. I'm working with Mary Shelter now, and I would very much like, if you do the trees again, to have the residents decorate a tree, if you do that.
Sure,
Again,
absolutely.
in some capacity, so,
that's a
yeah,
good
if I could do that, so I'll email you.
Perfect. And I guess.
I'm interested in being part of lighting the greens.
Perfect. Thank you, Scott.
Yeah.
All right, so that's the end of the committee reports. Over to you, Randy. Anything in your rec director report?
Facility rentals was $1,300. We're still kind of handcuffed, or not handcuffed, but we can't use the stone house, so there's limitations for that. Speaking of the stone house, if you haven't been able to see the work they're doing, they're moving along very rapidly. All the paths have been, whatever that word's called, that black stuff they put down. Macadam.
Asphalt.
There's some mixed feedback on how well they're doing and how it looks, but as to me it looked good. Things look good. As I mentioned before, with the rec department fundraising, I started the letter to the businesses and started putting together my list based on last year and some new ads. Like I mentioned last time, if you guys have anybody that you think we should reach out to, please email me their name, contact information, and what relationship they are to the borough.
Do you remember, I had mentioned Kimberton before, that they have a monthly organization they partner with, and all of like
Yes.
whenever you round up, it goes to that organization, and they have like a wait list for who's. So I think it would be awesome to get on the Wyomissing Rec Department to be one of their monthly. Like anytime you round up the month of February, it goes to the Rec Department. Like that would be huge. It's thousands of dollars.
Yeah. But like I said, if anybody has anybody, I've mentioned it at our staff meeting with all the construction, the contractors that we work with. So Greg in Public Works is putting together a list for me. So if anybody has any recommendations, please let me know. Event-wise, we finished up our summer concert series with the wonton soups at the pool, and honestly speaking, it was the lowest turnout of any of the concerts that we had. I don't necessarily think it was because of the music. It was cloudy, it was chilly.
It was late.
It was, I think we moved it from a Saturday night to the Sunday. School was out on Monday, but it still was a terrible turnout. Not sure, so just some decisions that need to be made. That they played, it was like a Brian Seltzer kind of, band. The people were there that enjoyed it, but still the lowest turnout of everything we did. Movies in the park, we've had, finally got to show The Little Mermaid from last year. As I mentioned before, we had already paid the licensing fee, so it was always going to be in the rotation. This last weekend, the Wyomissing Hills Social Committee sponsored the Wonka show. There were over 300 people at that showing. It was unbelievable.
Willy Wonka was there himself, right?
Willy Wonka was dressed up in there. I don't know if the kids wanted pictures with him more or the moms wanted pictures with him more.
Was that just somebody that showed up, or was that somebody that?
No,
that
it was
came
somebody, it's a friend of mine's company, and she sent her brother, who's Welsh, had his costume on. Yeah.
The Easter egg.
Yeah.
Just like
He,
it was remarkable.
it was, if you haven't seen some of the pictures,
I
look
didn't
on
see the person,
Facebook.
but I saw the pictures. Yeah.
The kids loved them. Like I said, there were over 300 people. So a great turnout. The committee sold chocolate bars and other candy stuff, and Kona Ice was there, and they had a popcorn donation from Redner. So it was just all in all a very good setup. Next movie is 9/28, and it's Elemental. If you guys remember, originally it was scheduled at the Stonehouse, and we're now showing that at Happy Hollow. The last one is October 5th, Berkshire Heights Playground of the Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. The Fall Walk series, as with all the programming that we do, I do the positives and negatives, and that this was a program that Pete was bringing back from years ago, but didn't really do any movement on it until when he left. So we printed stickers and gave away stickers, but the feedback from the participants were, well, what are we here for? What are we getting? So there really was nothing to it. As you walk through the parklands, as you guys have all probably done, you have plenty of questions when you walk up to Goodman Barn, Lutz's Farm, Roos Bridge, to try to learn, because we don't, unless you grew up here and it's been handed down for centuries of what it's about, you don't know. So this year what we're doing is we're printing yard signs with QR codes on them, and in front of, I think it's either 9 or 11 different locations throughout the parklands. There'll be a QR code. I'm building the web pages of when you scan the QR code, it takes you to the history of Roos Bridge. Takes you to the history of Evans Grist Mill, to Old Wyomissing Road, to the raceway of, where they were channeling the water. So a lot of,
And you're doing this for the, I'm sorry, go ahead.
for the Fall Walk series.
I'm sorry, I had to walk, I wanted to make sure Adrian wasn't locked out.
Yeah. It's part of the Fall Walk series.
Okay, I think that, I just wanted to throw in, like, Park and Shade is going to start getting more involved in putting educational material out in the parklands now that we have that study and all the things we're doing with that, so.
Did they come back? A perfect example is the Spring House.
You can access
It
it
got-
online.
It got knocked down, or it was ruined. They used to have that placard that was there that had the history of Roos Bridge. Is that what you're talking about putting up, or are you talking about
No, I'm
putting
just
stuff in the
talking in
kiosks?
general, what the parkland study was looking at overall what's going on with the parklands, riparian buffers, invasive species, trash cans, benches,
Yeah.
all of that
Is
stuff.
that what the Park and Shade Commission does? Like, is that what they talk about?
Yeah, pretty much. much it.
So it's not necessarily the history of individual architectural spots, it's more.
No, but expanding the education of the parklands, be it the historical locations, the species that are growing, the invasives that are taking over, all of that we want to expand from an educational standpoint, putting up more kiosks in different areas to teach people stuff. So I love that you're starting with the walk, but we want to expand
Yeah.
on that and try and make it more
And does the
prominent and
park and shaders, where's the finance come to make those placards? Is that supposed to be?
some of it will be budgeted, which is really small, some of it will be grants, we're gonna look for a lot of grants now that we have this study.
Would park and shade like a day at the pool?
Sure,
Yes.
we would love a day at the pool. Yeah, I just wanted to let you know, like, we're gonna start working as well on
Okay.
expanding education on all
Okay,
fronts.
well, then this is a perfect segue to get to that.
Absolutely.
And like it's listed, I think there's 9 things here, I don't have all of them written, but 3 of them are up and running, I think you tested a couple for me.
Are we
But I
gonna
think
have
that'll make
anything,
the event
are we gonna have like just a list, or are we gonna have anything like the maps to
I'm
point out?
taking the borough maps, that we have the parklands map and
Yep.
putting dots on them with all the.
So we can just do
numbers.
that
Yeah.
as we're there, just to
Yeah.
only mark up the numbers that we need.
Yeah.
And the different dates, Randy, those are just gonna be like options for when you can do it, but it's the same.
Yeah, it's not a guided tour, it's
Right,
self-guided,
it's the
you
same
go for a walk in the park. But at least now there's something to do while you're walking. I mean, the idea, when I went back and did all the research, was to watch the leaves change color, way back in the day. And people enjoyed, that was a community walk. Wasn't as much TV back in the 40s, so that was something they did. So now at least there's an educational aspect to it.
Gotcha, but like if I go on the 29th, I'll have a similar experience.
Yeah, the same stuff will be up, but the leaves will be a different color.
Yeah.
And you'll have to wear a better jacket. House decorating contest is back. We're encouraging people to start decorating October 1st through the 27th. The judge will be the 28th, and we'll do the boo bags like we did last year. Spooky Hollow, we already went over. It's the 19th. The date's wrong on this. It should be 3 to 6 on the director's report. That should be 6 o'clock. Sorry about that.
And I'll just add to, just to piggyback, we made sure to let everybody know that if they're coming, if they're a volunteer, or they're a community group, or an outside vendor, they need to commit to both dates. Both dates, they need to be ready. Yeah, so go ahead, sorry.
Because your second rainy day parade.
The Twinklepalooza house decorating, the Christmas decorating, and the lighting of the greens, Rick kind of went over that. Playground, or the programming stuff, the playground, we sent out a parent survey on 8/13. Since I've written this, I think there's been 3 more responses, but the things that really stood out were we had a 98.2% satisfied with how the program was run. I didn't want to, when we wrote it, we didn't want it to basically pat ourselves on the back and say, over-satisfied or really well satisfied. I mean, satisfied is satisfied. You're happy with how the program went. But you can get into some of the other details below that as well. The biggest thing that stood out was, how would you justify price increases? 91% said that we could justify a price increase by adding an extra week. The program's 8 weeks now, and we want to take it to 9 weeks next year. And looking at neighboring communities, they're range from 7. There's only one other program that does it for 9 weeks. So the pool, the same kind of thing. We sent a survey out on 9/5. We got 45 responses back, and you can kind of read through those. Tennis survey went out on 8/19. Only one person replied to that, which was a little surprising, but they wrote that they loved it. Gymnastics and so on. I think all of them, if anybody wants copies of them, I sent it to the pool committee and the playground committee. If anybody else wants it, I can send you the PDF. What I would suggest is don't get hung up. If you've ever read surveys, don't get hung up on one remark that somebody says the pool was cloudy. Most people, when they reply, they remember the last time they went to the pool. They don't think back the entire summer, they think of the last time they went. and their food came out terribly. So if you'd like it, send me a note and I can send you a copy of it.
I do recall at one time there was talk of like surveying more people for the pool, like so. For our family, like we just use day passes. Like we're not members, we're not on the swim team. It doesn't make sense. We don't use the pool enough to justify being members. So like I remember at one point, I think it was before Randy's time, we talked about expanding the survey to see what other types of programming could draw additional residents. Kind of what Rick was talking about with like if you offer this day it supports the library, then you might get people that aren't typically going to the pool that come on that day, because not only do they do the pool, but they also support the library. So surveying not just the people that are the members, but expanding it to see what kinds of programming could draw additional people in.
The survey we send out, is that an email that goes through MyRec, or how do we get that survey?
MyRec.
Okay. Would it be something that we could throw a QR code on a sign at the pool and just put it on a little thing?
At the end of the season?
I mean, even for the whole year, that at any point in time someone could take a pool survey for the duration of the year.
The questions on this one were pretty specific to being a member of the pool, like the services that exist there already, I think. But we could probably make one that was a little more generic and put it even on like the Facebook page, I would think.
The nice thing about it is Kristen is a survey goddess.
I threw them together for him, that's why I kind of answered. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to like talk over
but
you, but like
this
Randy came up with all the questions and I just kind of like popped them in, so.
If there's
but-
something that you feel
yeah.
would be a
Uh-huh.
better survey for, say, to the point of day passes, or maybe like an interim survey, we could stick it on a QR code and have feedback. Here's a QR code for a survey at any point. Hey, you're here for the day pass. If you want to do a survey while you're here, scan that and send it off. So that way we're not just accumulating things at the end of the year. To your point, you remember the last day of the pool season, right? So if something that comes up that we can capture at other points in time.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Rick had asked me to pull together some numbers for him before the meeting, and you may go. Are you going over those?
I didn't get the chance to fully read it. So
Because
if
you
wanna touch
mentioned
on
the
it.
day passes, we had 1,566 day pass residents. Resident day passes. We had 317 non-resident day passes. We had 95 resident moonlight swim or twilight swims. We had 1,325 member moonlight swims. We had 357 non-member moonlight swims. And 27 guest pass books. Those are books of 10 passes. We sold 27 of those. There's not a lot of historical data to compare these two because it hasn't always been collected in the same manner.
Yeah, it's
So those are just some numbers.
a good way to collect the numbers
Yeah.
over the years to see, yeah.
But I was surprised by the fact that we had 1,500 day passes.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like I feel like there's a lot of people in my situation where we go, we spend it's $20. We go. We don't go 5 times a week. So for us, like we go once a week over the summer. It doesn't make sense to have a membership for a 2-parent, 1-kid household.
Any questions on the director's report?
No questions. I have a motion to accept the
One
director's report.
more question
Sure.
or comment on the pool, the very early in, like the pool one that was really poorly attended, Randy. The band was so good. I went to that. It was so good. So I feel like it was a combination to me. Was a combination of it was very late in the summer, so the attendance always dips down. So we were at that time we were closing the pool at 7. We were routinely closing the pool at 7, but on that night we had the pool open from 6 to 8. So in years past, I think the summer pool party was geared more towards younger families. I remember it having like blow up slides, and it was like a 12 to 8, and it was free admission. So the band was playing, and there were kids going down the slides, like the blow ups, and like it was this big community event. And so this year I feel like some of that got a little bit lost. Like I feel like we kicked people out of the pool, and then they had to re-enter and pay the $5, and it was also like cool and cloudy, like you said. So like we cleared the pool, and it was like kind of like more like a moonlight swim, but I feel like we were missing the audience it used to be. It used to be like the younger kids that we were catering towards with that summer pool
Well,
party.
we had a party in the summer that had the slides and all the stuff you described, And what I was told by looking at what I read from last year, we had 2 slides in the back. We lost power for 10 minutes. I forgot what the date was, but. we had
Those
a-
were always coincide, at least in the past years, to my knowledge, I mean, I obviously haven't been,
This,
you know, around.
how it was
Borough.
described in the past was the end of summer party and had music. That's all the folder said that they did. They didn't show any bounce houses or anything like that.
Gotcha.
Extended hours, a band, and I think there was a food option last year.
I feel like if you like, to me, those two kind of go hand in hand. If you're gonna have a big party, like have a big party at the pool, I don't know. Cause I think you lost a ton of people with it being so late.
That was
And
one
then-
of the things that Chris talked to me about when he and I went over the survey. Is it was his first year too.
Yeah.
I mean, he did a great
Yeah.
job, but it was a learning period for
Yeah,
him.
so everybody's
And
on-
his goal next year is to have more events at the pool, similar to what you were talking about, but combining it and making it almost back what it used to be a pool member. There's always something cool and fun going on at the pool, so you wanted to be a member of the pool.
Mhm.
So, I think Chris did a fantastic job this year.
We appreciate the comments, and I think pool committee has heard that. We'll see what we can do better next year overall. Any other questions for the rec director report? Do I have a motion to approve the rec director report? Second? Second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, moving on. Old business, there is no old business. New business on there, I didn't have the fee schedule put on there.
Can you hold on one second?
Oh, sure.
Michelle wanted us to let her call in.
So the last time we did this was for my grade. Or not for my grade.
Hey Michelle.
Hello.
Hey Michelle. We have the rec board here for you.
I'm gonna mute myself, but I'm here.
Okay. Thank you.
And Melissa, I sent you that email. I'm not sure if you got it. It was since I've been in here. I'm not sure if you're signed in or if Randy signed in.
No, we were just using flash drive. with
Oh,
all the
gotcha.
documents.
Okay, not a problem. So I had brought together, so I will have this sent out for better discussion next month. But I pulled together just a list of the rec fees and the last time we changed them, just because I know fees are always a hot button. I know we've talked ad nauseum when it's come up to increase those fees overall. The pool membership we changed that, I guess, in 2019. I'm missing my,
Rick, all that is
Yep.
on that worksheet
on that
too.
worksheet.
Yeah.
Let me grab your worksheet, it's probably a little better than mine here.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't know you could do that. Yeah, so the far right hand
Oh, there we go.
side shows that last date. So on that, it's got the proposed 2025, what last year was, and when it was last changed.
So these are just some of the fees. Again, as always, keep in mind, we want to be mindful of the gap of what we spend versus what we collect on some of these things. So it looks like we are going up with some of these fees. And before that, prior to the most recent change, we hadn't had a substantial change to the playground fees. We had a change in 2020, and we had a change in 2018. And at that point in time, those fees were $85 and $95 for kids in playground. So it has not been a tremendous increase since then overall, and I believe the staffing costs have doubled in that time frame. Those budget
I
items.
think it jumped the year from 2021 to 2022, it went up
2022 was the last change.
37%, I believe, when I calculated it, and then the year prior to that, it went up 52%. So we did 2 major increases back-to-back years. So,
Price increases?
yes,
Mhm.
for
So we
playground,
had-
yes.
We had a change to how we had the fee structure, so we went from charging, we added in the night playground, and then we reduced some of those fees.
21 to 22, right, but the first one from, do you have that? I can find it if not, but
So I
But
have
the year prior,
so
before we combined it, it was a 52% increase, and we did not combine them.
so this is the fee schedule from 23.
Yeah, the fee schedule from 21 is what I'm looking for.
21, they were $95, and you got a $10 discount if you did early registration, but night playground was included in that. That was
Okay.
2021. In 2022, it was $145.
Yeah, so when I went from that,
In 2022, it was $145, and you got a $10 discount, but that included night playground.
yeah,
In 2023 is when it got separated into day and night, and it was set at 120 and 80. So combined, it would have been 200. Same thing we did last year, and the recommendation is to take a 15% increase in day or morning playground this year.
yeah, so I think you have to take that into consideration. That's 2 huge increases 2 years in a row.
Well, but you're doing a 15% increase, but adding an additional week,
Right.
Yeah.
which is gonna add a 12.5% increase.
It's a 15% increase after the
After the extra
adding.
week, right, no, what I'm
Yes.
saying, but you're gonna have a 12.5% increase in wages, cause now you have to pay your staff for an additional week. 1/8 is 12.5%, or is 0.125%, so you're gonna have a 12% increase in wages. You have a 15% increase in fees, but your wages in general are higher than your fees, so this is gonna take us deeper into the red.
So what the plan is we spent 88,000 on wages this year. The budget for next year, what I submitted was 90, even with the added week, because we can control our expenses better for next year.
Right, but you only brought in $55,000 this year.
Right, and next year,
Yeah.
next year's plan is a 10% increase in enrollment. That's how I came up with the $76,000.
So you'll bring in 60,000.
No, 76,000. Between
Okay,
the
so-
increase
but
in
so-
rate and the 10% increase in enrollment, it'll equate to $76,000 in revenue.
But you're still keeping us far in the red. And that's just talking about basic wages, that's not talking about playground programming.
Has it ever been in the black? Has it
No,
been
it should
historically
never,
ever been in the
it
black?
should never be in necessarily, no, we should not be profiting from it. But we need to, every penny that is lost is a penny a taxpayer has to pay. And, you know, we just bought a fire truck for $1 million, we just bought, you know, we are spending a lot of money. This year, the proposed budget is set to spend $2 million more than revenue,
Okay,
because we have a lot of money in the bank.
fire truck isn't the playground programs.
No, I understand, but what I'm saying is in general, I think things need to tighten up. And if you look, West Reading's playground fee for 8 weeks is $250.
Full day and they take no field trips.
It's 8 to 12, and it's an extra $150 for field trips. Exeter is $95 a week, or $735 for 10 weeks. Like, we are one of the lowest ones.
I agree that we need to increase it. I don't agree with increasing it substantially
So
all
I,
at once. After we did it 2 years in a row, we took 1 year off after we practically doubled the price 2 years before that,
Just
with
a-
no notice. I don't agree with doing it any more than this. 15% is more, I think, than we should be
I would be
doing.
curious to see the historical discrepancy, like what percentage, so, I mean, I don't know if you have access to that or not, maybe Melissa does, but like 10 years ago, what did the playground bring in, and what did they spend?
These are
Like,
all
I'd be
of
curious
the-
to know that, the ratio,
These
you
are all
know,
of the-
compared to now, what we're doing, obviously, everything's gone up, right?
This is all of the fee resolutions going back to 2017 that show the ratios.
do we
right here.
know,
We do know how much
do we
we
know
got.
the
I don't-
ratio of parents who have 1 child in the program versus parents who have like 4 children in the program?
There's probably a way to dive through my rec and find that. I don't have it off the top of my head. I have the responses, which over 90% of the responses were 3 children.
Okay, so my proposal was to do a discount for additional children. This is what I said last time I was here. I think your your fee should go up to $175 for your first child. That
And
is
why do you think that? What's the reasoning or the rationale behind that number? Why did you pick 175?
because I was trying to stay within the constructs of what you guys are trying to bring in. So if your first child is $175, you're talking about a $55 increase for the parent of an only child. $55 over the course of 8 weeks is like $6 a week. If you give them a discount, I broke it down to a $35 discount, which is a 16%. That's only, so the 175 is a 45% increase. And I'm working off of 8-week numbers, not 9-week numbers. If you gave a $35 discount to all the additional children, let's go with you have 3 children at $155 a piece, 3 children would cost you $465. If you charged $175 for the first and $140 for all the additional, if you had 3 children, we'd be bringing in $455. If you go down to, and then I did a discount of $40. If you went down to $135 for all the additional children instead of $140, 3 children would cost you $445. What it boils down to is for 2 children, which is, your average household is 2.1 children, I believe. It might be lower than that. It used to be 2.1 children per household. But if you charge $175 for the first kid and $140 or $135 for the second kid, if you charge $155 for 2 kids, it's $310. If you give them if you give a $40 discount on the second kid, 2 kids is still $310. But that parent who has 2 kids is grateful that they are able to get a discount on the additional children. You give discounts on additional children for the pool. There's not a flat pool rate where every kid, 3-person pool, you got 2 parents and 1 child, that's $300. That's $100 a person. It's not $400 if you have 2 kids or $500 if you have 3 kids. So I think we can give additional children a discount. And our prices are low, right? And they're low. And I don't think we should add another week, but that's another story.
What do you suggest for the evening?
You can leave the evening as it is. I don't know how many people
Well,
actually do evening.
I guess my question is the goal to offset or generate more revenue? Is that the goal?
Well, my goal is to generate the revenue that you guys wanted to generate with this in a way that could possibly
What do
bring
you mean
in
that we
more.
wanted to generate?
Well, but with the $155 increase.
We don't wanna increase it at all.
Well,
We're being
it's
told we
gotta
have
go.
to increase
You have to
it,
increase
so
it.
that's why we're doing it,
Yeah.
but we don't want to.
So the number that you picked, 155, I was trying to stay in line with that number.
Yeah, we didn't,
Okay.
this is the first time we're discussing that number.
Well, right, but that's the number that I looked at.
And that's
I
the
said,
number
well,
that came
that's
out,
the starting point.
playground,
That's the number I looked
right?
at, and that's the starting point.
That's the number that Randy and I can work with.
We did different scenarios. We looked at
Yeah.
a 10% increase, 15, and 25. And the difference between a 15 and a 25 goes from 155 to 170, I think, is a 25% increase. In talking to Nikki, Aaron, Kristen, in our conversation was we don't want to scare people like West Reading did. West Reading originally published $400 a kid. After a lot of pushback from the residents, they dropped it to $250.
Well, then they charge $150 for the, it is $400 if you wanted to do
Plus the field
and
trips.
stuff.
Yeah.
Right,
So
they broke it up.
Kristen talked
The
to
same
him.
way you broke up morning and
Well,
evening.
they had a separate field trip. They had to do an addendum. They had to sign an addendum to lower the costs because there were complaints.
Yeah, they had it published at $400 plus field trips. That was originally what their plan was. After the pushback from the public, they had a council meeting and they reduced it from 400 to 250. They have 38 kids, is that 35 or 38 kids participate in that program. I don't know what that compares to last year, but we have 525 kids that participate in our program. So it's not even apples to apples. you mentioned some of the other locations, like Spring Township is $150 a kid
Right,
for their program. South Heidelberg is
I
$125.
think Spring Township is 7 weeks also,
Yeah, 7 weeks.
right?
South Exeter is operated through the YMCA. We know what ours is. West Reading was published at 400. Sinking Springs says that theirs is 100 for a 9-week program. So,
What I'm saying is the parent of an only child can look at 120 to 175 and say,
Holy
that
shit.
is a $55 increase. That is a cup of coffee a week. You have one child.
They're not
It's
gonna
a-
see it like that though, they're gonna see it as,
Well, you can't
Us.
see, well, I would see it like that, 100%. When I was paying $85 and $95, I was like, I am ripping off the borough. I am getting 3 hours of daycare, 5 days a week, 120 hours of daycare for $85. It was amazing. But
So the
wages have doubled, supplies have doubled, the programming has gotten significantly larger. Back then there was dried out markers and paper on the table, I mean, that was it. I love where the program's at, but we have spent significantly more on this program over this past several years than we have brought in. And I'm not opposed to it, I just think we need to tighten that gap, because
and I
it's
think we
just-
are
Right,
substantially 55,000 more in revenue between this year and next year is what the forecast is. That's a pretty big jump.
right, but what I'm saying is like, let's take that jump and make it a tiered thing, so that your first child is expensive and your
But I don't think we have,
progressive.
that's what I'm saying, we don't have to do that the way that
I-
we're proposing it now.
I think it's beneficial to the parents with multiple children. I think they will see it as a give, you don't have to pay. Otherwise, you're just gonna have to bring it up again. We take that first, that's just my opinion. You can charge $35 less
I guess
for
the best-
all
the
the
be-
other kids and only lose if you have somebody with 5 kids in the program and you charge $35 less per child for those 4 kids, you're only gonna lose $40.
Well, the fee schedule has to be approved in October, correct? Can you send that to us to look at? Cause to hear you talk numbers goes right over my head. Unless I'm looking at it at the same time you're looking at it, it's just not fair to try for
Yeah,
me to
that's fine.
decipher what you're saying.
I would also say, I would really be interested to see if there is like any historical, so I understand we know our fee schedule, like in the past, but do we know how much the playground program brought in on those years? So that would
I
be-
also think you can't judge anything accurately against this year because enrollment changed dramatically with the loss of all of the top kids.
Right.
And so it's,
I can tell you for
Nothing's
the last
comparable.
5 years what it is. I can't go back to 2017. This year was 55,764.
Wait, is this the deficit or is this?
No, this is revenues generated for the last 4 years. This year was 55,764.
Okay, here, hold on. Move down. 55, 764.
2023 was 61,942. 2022 was 65,115. And 2021 was 38,660.
And that was the net revenue, so like,
That was
My-
revenue based on enrollment fees.
okay, gotcha, and then that was, okay, gotcha, revenue based on.
But in 2022, when it was 65,000, I believe the wages were way lower than they are in 2024 when we only brought in 55,000.
Wages in 2022 were 62,000,
Wages were 62,000 when we brought in 65,000.
and we brought in 65.
That's where we should be.
And materials and supplies were 18,000.
Right, so we lost $15,000. This year we lost.
well, we would have had more if we hadn't lost enrollment.
We lost two.
But don't forget, we lost
I
50.
understand
So,
that,
I mean,
I understand that, but there's nothing we can do about that
I know, but
legally.
then you can't say, I mean, there's nothing we can do about it, but you also can't
Well, you say we have lost enrollment, but then we also have lost wages too, because you're not paying people to watch those children that you're not getting income from. So it balances out.
This is a transitional year. I don't know if you have fully grasped the state that the program was in last year, how poorly it was being run.
I'm not judging how it's being
I
run,
know.
Kristen. I thought it was run amazingly.
I'm not looking for that, but
Regardless, the costs of supplies and the cost of labor have gone up. Therefore, the cost of playground has to go up. We're
Right.
charging $1 an hour.
it doesn't have to go up.
What
What
I'm proposing is it goes up basically the same amount that is up here, but it's being more heavily distributed to people with only children versus people with 4 and 5 children. So that
But as a parent, I wouldn't go for that. This
I
is-
would.
If you have one child, you're
I
expected to pay more.
have one child. I would absolutely pay more because you got one child. I'm not trying to support 4 kids in this program. If it costs $250 and you're gonna tell me all 4 kids, I can't pay $1,000. I can easily pay $250. Now, if you tell me it's gonna cost $300, but all the other kids get to pay $200, now this parent with 4 kids gets to save money and you'll get higher enrollment. Because the people with 6 kids will be able to put all 6 kids in because the price dropped for them. The people with 1 kid can probably put out an extra $45. And if they can't, then we should have a program that supports low-income families and find a way to work with them. But I
think
feel
there's-
like any Wyomissing resident who has 1 child should be able to pay $175. I would do it in a heartbeat.
I think there's other things that we're not considering too, like the reason the numbers are low, like Kristen said, is because we took a hit with losing all the tot lot, not all the tot lot, but a lot of the tot lot kids. But in addition, when you think of like all the summer camp opportunities now, there's like an insane, like you can send your kid to Berks Nature, you can send your kid to yoga,
You're
you
gonna
can
pay
send your kid.
$250 a week to do that.
It's not that expensive.
For a full day,
But I'm saying like there's all these, what I'm suggesting is that there's all these competition for summertime, right? Like there's all these options, like there weren't so many options. So when I'm looking at these numbers about how enrollment historically was, I think part of it is people that finances aren't an issue for are picking whatever their kid wants to do, right? So if their kid wants to go to Yoakum, they'll send them to Yoakum for the summer. If the kid wants to go to Berks Nature, they'll send them to Berks Nature. Also what you said about the household size, there might be less kids in Wyomissing. Like, do we know those numbers? Like, how many kids are between the age of 5 and 12? Like, I don't know that, like, now versus 10 years
data
ago.
from 2018 when we updated the joint comprehensive plan. I mean, obviously it's now 6 years stale, but I could get updated information from the school districts.
Yeah, I mean, the
Michelle, you
numbers are
just
dropping.
totally took me aback. I forgot you were on the
Sorry.
phone. It's okay. So what is
My personal, I don't think that we need to discount it. I don't think you have to. I think it's just another layer I think people are gonna pay the $155 and be happy with it. It's gonna go from $1 an hour to $1.15 an hour.
I don't think that's.
And the feedback from the survey totally supports that and says, I will
Well, but the
justify,
feedback from the budget does not support that.
but it still gets you the
And
$76,000.
It is
Whether I
really
tap
long.
dance and do it in a roundabout discounted way, or if I do it as a flat 15% increase. It's still $76,000 is what you said.
I have a question. It sounds like Playground Committee 2 is talking about ways to kind of make the staffing a little bit more like, I don't know, streamline's the right word, but like a little bit more
Reduction in spending.
reduction that still meets the needs, but maybe not excessive presence.
We worked on that this year. There were a lot of hours spent,
Front loading it.
with the curriculum and with, just figuring out what was going on the front end of things that are not gonna be there next year. So I just think it's very unfair to look at the budget this year and look at the enrollment this year and make a projection because it's not a snapshot of
Well, the numbers I'm looking at are not even including upper management, it's literally just the kids working at the playground, and that was still.
That includes Aaron and Nikki as well.
Well, I'm looking at a different number then.
Okay.
What I'm seeing is what all the staff, the number of staff there still doesn't have.
This year, there was a reduction in counselor and supervisor hours and an increase in the director and facilitator hours because they started a month early to build the curriculum and the programming. So we invested this year heavily in the front end,
Yeah.
knowing that it sets the framework for future years. So those hours won't be the same for 2025.
I totally understand.
So we had a decrease in instruction hours, if that's what you wanna call it, in counselor and supervisor hours. I forgot what the number was off the top of my head, but we had a dramatic decrease in that.
Right, but that number still cost us more than we brought in enrollment.
Yeah, but it's always been that way, that we
Right,
don't bring in the
but that
same.
plus spending another $27,000 on programming, you're looking at a lot of money. I mean, I think we're like, it cost us
Well, is that a bigger
$45,000.
question is, what do we wanna give, what are we providing this service to our community? Do we wanna lower that service and not provide that same service?
No, I think we want to
Or we want them to
make
pay
the
for it?
fees, I think the fees need to go up to an appropriate number, and I do not believe $175 for an only child for 8 weeks, or, 9 weeks, it's not gonna work out, but for 9 weeks, it's nothing. I mean, it's less than, it's $18 a week, it's like $4 a day, $5 a day.
But compared to 120 that they've been paying, that's a big change. For some families, it's a big change.
Which is why I suggest we do a lower price for the additional parents. And that will mitigate that big change.
For some families with, I don't agree that it's just families with multiple children. I think across the board, I think it's just too big of a change.
When do we have to have the fee schedule information submitted by?
So council typically votes on it in November. I mean, you do have time to still talk about this at the October meeting. The reason Randy was trying to gather this information now is for preliminary budget conversations for finance in October. But that said, we could operate for budgeting purposes off the assumption that we're going with the lower fee schedule for revenue purposes and, wages, materials, and supplies where Randy set them, so that way if a decision is made, as we're going through and finalizing the budget, that there's going to be a higher fee for playground, it's in our favor, not to our detriment.
One of
Does
the
that make
reasons, it does, one of the reasons I wanted to get this on the agenda for this month is just to have this conversation, so we still have the ability to talk about this in October.
And you very much do. I mean, typically, it's the November finance meeting and then council is the following week where it's the budget getting voted on, the final budget getting voted on for advertisement. So, I mean, I'm not looking at a calendar at the moment, but you would have, rec board I think is roughly mid-October. You would have, we'd probably be having the second budget meeting by then, but like I said, if we're going in with the assumption we're gonna keep the playground increase at 15%, we can just work with the lower number and we end up with higher revenue, so be it. I'd rather go in that direction than assume higher and have lower revenue when we're finalizing the budget.
How much of that revenue was the playground leader training program? How many playground leaders did we train that we charged?
We didn't do that.
So it was
I
$50, but we didn't charge
Yeah,
anybody $50?
nobody signed up to do that.
So
they
did we
didn't do
not
it-
have any
They didn't do it last year.
playground leaders?
No, we had volunteers,
Okay.
but that program doesn't generate any revenue. That's why I'm recommending dropping it. It's silly to have it. We're charging people to come work for us.
Yeah, I thought it was odd, but I was
Yeah.
wondering how much income it brought.
I don't know how long
So
it's
it
been
was
there,
there, but you didn't
but I
utilize it.
recommended
Okay.
dropping
It's
it.
been there a long time.
Has it?
circle back to a historical question, it was I believe it was the November 2021 rec board meeting where we talked about having to increase staff wages, which went into effect for 22, and that was a pretty significant jump.
Yes.
Like, I think we were paying people $7.25 or $7.50 an hour, and, you know, some people who were making maybe $8 or $9 an hour because they had been there for, you know, maybe 2+ years, then went up to, I want to say it was like $11 or $12 an hour, so there was a significant jump in 22 for
50%
salaries.
jump. It was a 50% jump in wages.
And part of that we mitigated.
So therefore we need a 50% jump.
I mean,
in
part of that wage
registration
jump,
fees.
we mitigated by splitting out the night program, and then also
Mhm.
with the work that we've done trying to do the restaurant cut style of
But-
staffing.
But
Yeah.
Michelle, wasn't that coming after COVID and hiring was so tough that you had to increase your wages to get people?
Yeah, that's why McDonald's
Right.
was hiring for $15 an hour, and
Yeah.
I actually think it
Right,
was
but the
Steve
wages have
Brenner
to
that
stay
made
up.
the point,
That's
how
what
are
I'm
you gonna
saying,
get a
they're
kid
out
to come
there.
work for us for
Supplies
$7.50 an
are-
hour when they can go flip burgers for double that?
Yeah.
Right.
So since, obviously we've had a lot of numbers flying around on this tonight, would it be possible to take the numbers that came out of the committee and have those drawn up into the budget, and also take Jen's suggestions today of the higher amount with the discount, so we can have those circulated for the next rec board meeting and kind of look at
To
those,
look at it, yeah.
to be able to put that out, so we can all then have a better discussion about that,
Mm-hmm.
seeing them all for next month, and we can hopefully make a better decision, or maybe have a plan, understanding, you know, we hear some of the things about costs going up for everybody, we wanna be mindful of that on our end, but we also need to realize we're gonna need to start charging more for things to keep that gap closer together overall. So maybe we adopt a multi-year plan to try to step up. I think that might be one of the interim solutions if we can't hammer out something at this point, to the point that Kristen made, it's a transition year. We don't wanna make wholesale changes right now, but we have to realize that if this is the way forward, we don't just wanna be starting the conversation from scratch again down the road. So I think we need to maybe have, maybe a 2 or 3 year look forward that we try to do to come up with an appropriate fee.
Well, I think that's what we talked about when we made monumental steps to a
Mhm.
program that was dying.
Mhm.
That people wanted to, enrollment was decreasing, people were talking about not coming back. We made great strides to reverse that.
Mhm.
What I would be afraid of doing is those people scratching their head going, oh, well crap, now you're gonna just screw the whole thing up again. I don't wanna scare people away. That's why we settled on that 15% with that target of 76, was that it wouldn't be to the point where people would be afraid of it. And what Kristen is saying is that same thing, a step program. That year 2, we go to another 10%. In year 3, we go to this. And so each year we increase those revenues.
But I also understand that, you know, we need to understand as a committee that year over year, we've asked to run at a larger deficit with this program, not just with staffing levels, but with also the additional costs, the maintenance and supplies, all of those additional line items that cause us to run in a bigger deficit overall. So we need to be mindful with our recommendations to make sure we keep that gap in check as best we can. So I think that the combination of the higher fee for it, as well as maybe putting it on a plan to look at those higher fees down the road.
Yeah, I think going hand in hand with a fee schedule would be some sort of check and balance system with the budget, because purchasing and things along those lines, I think they could be done more effectively,
Yeah.
better, so much better. And I don't know how we do that, but I think just looking at it once per month is not enough.
Yeah.
Especially when, you know, the program's only 8 weeks, 9 weeks.
Yeah.
Rick, can we look at the other fee schedules and approve those? And if you wanna earmark a couple that you wanna come back on, but that would lessen it, if I had to do it all in a
No, I mean, I
2-week
think,
period.
yeah, I think that if we looked at the rest of the fee schedule, again, I wanna be mindful of time as well, but if we scroll down, I don't know if there's appetite for us to increase the rentals. I'm not sure where we stand otherwise. We did
Yeah.
do increases on them within the past few years, so I think perhaps this year we'll leave it go, but
Yeah,
again,
I
it seems-
actually would advocate for the opposite, which is what I had brought up a couple meetings ago, which is probably not. But like, I've received like 2 families that I know that have rented the Stonehouse and Happy Hollow. Like, one family rented Stonehouse like 4 times, and the other rented 10 times. And the fee went from like $125 or $150 to $300. And the families that were renting those facilities are families that don't have, 2,500 square foot homes. They don't have like big entertaining space, so they were using the Stonehouse and the surrounding grounds to entertain more people. So going from $125 or $150 to $300 is really cost prohibitive for the families that I feel like were utilizing those resources. So that's my 2 cents on the matter. Like, I think, we rented the Stonehouse once and we really enjoyed renting it. We would not rent it for $300 because we would use that money towards like food or that's a lot of money for us. Like, but we have a small home, so hosting a lot of people at our house really isn't feasible. We would love to utilize the facilities by the borough, but it's a lot of money for us, like, to rent space, and with like no air conditioning. You get bathrooms, but you have to do all the cleanup, all the setup. I guess you get chairs and tables. I'm just trying to think of what you get for that money, $300 is a lot.
Here's an example, a pavilion in West Reading with a kitchen is $375.
For a day?
Yep.
But you're
The
gonna
decision was
compare to
also
West Reading's
made to
pavilion, but not
raise
compare to West Reading's playground program?
No,
I mean, you can't pick and choose what you wanna compare to West Reading. I'm good, I'm done. You can't.
I was just gonna add, the reason the decision was made to substantially increase the rental fees was because we were getting people that were either shopping it, like, oh, I think I want this, but I don't know, or we were getting people that were trashing the facility, like leaving it in a condition that it was taking parks and maintenance employees hours to clean up.
That's
And we've
ridiculous.
not had that problem since we increased the fees.
Right, but like I mean that's 3 families. I'm just speaking from like it's anecdotal. Obviously I haven't, surveyed Wyomissing or anything, but 2 families that I know of and our family, like that's a fee that we would not be willing to pay for what you're getting for that. Take it for what it's worth. That's just my feedback.
Yeah, the way to prevent people from dropping out is to make them pay 60 days in advance. And they get set refund amounts closer to the date. And the way to prevent people trashing it is to also take a cleaning deposit that you get fully returned to you
If you clean it.
when it's finished. I mean, that's how you overcome that.
Yeah, I think
But
that
it's-
some people would just say, I'll just let it go. Like they plan to let their deposit, but
Well, that's fine, that'll
Yeah.
cover the cleaning fee then.
If it's the key
We
deposit,
did a
what is the
combination,
cleaning deposit?
we've actually done a combination of both things where we increased the fee, and the key deposit had been $20, and we have since increased the key deposit to $100 for just that purpose. You have to pay the $100 key deposit, which we hold until we view that the project's,
Inspection.
until the inspection is
Yeah.
done. So we have done both things. I can't say that we've seen substantial drop off in numbers of hand, but we did make that change going from 21 to 22, where we did double the cost from 150 to 300 for the Stonehouse, and also for the pavilions from 125 to 250. So we do still have pavilion rentals available in that 250 price range. Again, it's not the Stonehouse, but you can rent other pavilions available at the borough that come with those sorts of things. So I still think that there is that give and take between both types of rentals available for folks.
In terms of the cleaning fee, keep in mind, a lot of times Parks and Maintenance is going in on overtime because it's a weekend to clean. So, you're talking 2 individuals, and if it's taking them 2 or 3 hours to clean that facility, you're now looking at, you'd have to have a $250 cleaning deposit to potentially cover cost.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's unreasonable to ask though. Because you pay
get it back.
you get it back. You pay that when you rent an apartment. You pay fees deposits that are held to make sure you follow the rules, and then your deposit is fully refunded. But, I mean, that's just.
Also understand there's an administrative staff time to holding those deposits and then having to credit them back.
So at this point, it sounds like you guys wanna reduce the fees that we charge for the rentals overall?
That would be
No,
my
I don't.
preference,
I'm
I'm
just
like,
saying
me as an
there's ways.
individual, that's not like, obviously that's.
I mean, those were some of the reasons we increased them, but also, again, to be more in line to the point where these were things that are, again, had been relatively small fees. Obviously, there's a lot that goes into it from the borough side. To have these facilities, they're not obviously paying for themselves, but it is just another line item for us to try to collect that fee income overall from people using those rented facilities.
No, I'm fine with the price, I know you are, but I'm fine with the price, it was just the reason for the price.
Right, I
There's
like-
many other ways around.
I like the,
We're there, so.
the cleaning deposit, I like that idea, like that would be a way.
Well, no,
so
we
like
have
you
that
don't
in there today, that's the key.
It's called key deposit.
But it's
So
the
it's
same
not-
thing.
It's the same.
Same thing. It's, they
So
get an
they're
inspection,
back, yeah.
whether they cleaned it, had alcohol, put everything back how it's supposed to be. There's a whole checklist that Public Works has.
Gotcha, so maybe that could be increased more to cover the potential overtime cost. I just, it's just something that like, I've received the feedback, so I wanna share it, that's all, I'm done.
With the other items, like the pool memberships, is recommendation is to stay the same. It's straight on in tune with West Reading. West Reading is
I would
330.
also like to add that this was the first year we actually made, it wasn't a lot, but it was like almost $2,000 in revenue if you compare pool fees compared to salaries and materials and supplies. And I don't think that has ever happened before, so kudos.
So I think, again, with the sorts of things, in the same vein as we're talking about the playground, as the pool seems to have this year, without having the big shocks we had in the playground, the pool seemed to kind of be more in line with where we were hoping to get this year. So I would be inclined to leave the fees as they are with the same 2-year plan. Again, we need to be mindful of what those staffing level costs versus what our supply costs are, making sure we keep very close to bringing in what we're gonna need to cover that overall.
Wasn't there something brought up at a previous meeting about if you have a couple that doesn't have kids, that's not a membership category?
I believe Randy was building that into the
Yeah.
proposed fee
I thought I
schedule.
had it in
You
there.
had it written
Resident
somewhere.
individual.
Well, resident individual would cost $350 for that price.
Versus,
Or I mean, two people.
I did
versus
have,
if you got a resident family with 1 kid, you could take in both adults without kids and pay $300 versus 2 individuals paying $350.
Is that what the discounts for the kids?
I thought I had it on there.
You had it somewhere, but
Everyone would
The increments between the children are different.
Yeah, that's weird.
Like,
As you get into higher numbers.
yeah, but also in between family and parent, and also between the number, like, they vary. Like,
I mean, resident
between
Yeah, I mean,
5 and
six
6
kid
for
only
one
pays
parent
$10.
is 10, but 5 and 6 for a family is.
Yeah, I'm not sure how
20.
those are the numbers that were there before. I'm not sure how they were determined. You guys
I
might
don't know if you wanna
remember
make
that.
them uniform or not, but I just noticed that, I was just mapping it, while I
Also,
was sitting here.
yeah, it's random. Also, like the guest book, is that for non-residents specifically, or is that like as a
It's only for
resident?
members, right?
Members can buy it and share it with their guests.
And that would be clear in the rep guide.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, and you also can't sign up for my rec account to even buy guest pass or just show up at the pool if you're a non-resident and do anything unless you're there with an actual pool member.
do you wanna fix it?
No, this is West Reading.
Well, do you wanna add that, should we write that in, the
Yeah, I took a
resident,
note.
like a
Resident
couple or
or
couple,
something? Yeah.
is just,
I have it on the
Okay.
worksheet upstairs.
What is the key for a couple?
it was just like double the individual, I think, right?
No, it
No?
was,
Or less,
it was less.
So,
$5 less?
It looks like the difference
remember what it
in the children was, the last time we increased the fee, we just blanketly increased everything $50, and we can carry forward previously. So the last time we did fee increases, we just across the board raised every category $50. So if there's an appetite to raise them more, to make the numbers look prettier, we can do that, or we can just leave the odd numbers
Oh,
as they are.
I want to raise, and I just noticed they were different
Yeah, I
increments,
see on
and,
here that the different.
you know. But I.
Ours looks
I
like
have
it jumps
people
$30 per
scrutinize
kid
on
till you
that.
get to 5 and 6.
Well, it jumps
But only
$20
$20
for a
for the
kid at
first
the beginning,
kid.
and then
the more you have,
$10
the more
for
you
a
have to
kid
pay.
at the end.
Yes.
So you're
It
incentivized
seems
to
like
stop
really,
at
it's
the
really silly to me.
It's
To publish that in the rec
super
guide
random.
seems pretty unprofessional. I feel like it should have a reason behind it. That's my opinion.
to give random discounts for
Yeah, it
kids.
is. That's the
For the additional children.
So my only recommendation was increasing playground and tennis lessons.
Yeah.
And tennis lessons, I did that only because it hasn't been raised since 2017, and it was only being raised $5 for the 1 week, and then comparable for the following weeks. And those are more in tune with the other places that I checked. Ours are still slightly cheaper. There's a couple that are more expensive than us that are private clubs.
So other than the playground fee adjustments, does anyone still have anything they feel unresolved about, or do you think we're good moving with the budget at the moment for the fee increases, or the fee schedule at the moment? Or do we really need to tear into this and start adjusting based on kids for the pool, if that's really what we feel needs to occur?
We're gonna get a second look at it, right, in October? So
Well,
we
at this
can
point, we
see
were
it.
Yeah, what
looking
I'm
to try
trying
to
to do
move
is-
on everything except for the playground, so we can finalize everything outside of the playground fees tonight. So we can at least have that portion ready to go, and then in next month, we're only talking about playground fees and not the larger conversation.